We suggest we
All
do
the above.
$500 for this campaign.
Oh, they want all the above. Oh, yeah, they reach out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'll be quick and easy tonight, right? Gil, quick and easy. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to our City Council meeting, Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. If you will please stand for invocation, followed by Pledge of Allegiance. Dear God, we come before you today to give you honor and praise. You are the source of all that is good in our lives. You are the source of all of our blessings. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together this day. We ask for your blessings of cooperation on this meeting. We ask you to help us accomplish our work and our goals this day. All this we ask in your precious name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. If you will, please turn off or silence your electronic devices. If you would like to address the council, there are forms at the end of the room. Please fill them out, turn them into the city clerk if you would like to address the council at the appropriate time. With that, we'll get right into our agenda. Our first order of business is recognition of Tampa Electric and the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council bronze level sponsorship. And I will ask our very own Mr. Alan Denham to come forward, please. Alan's the regional manager, external affairs for Tampa Electric Company. Welcome, Alan.
Well, thank you.
The Mayor's Youth Leadership Council was established by Mayor Gerardo in 2018 to provide local students in grades 10 through 12 with the opportunity to participate in civic, leadership, and service programs to develop leadership abilities and inspire a commitment to community service and lifelong civic responsibility. Last year, the Youth Council assisted with many community events and worked to establish a giving library at the New Boys and Girls Club. With the assistance of generous sponsors like TICO, 10 members were able to close out the year by participating in the Close-Up Government Relations Program in Washington, D.C. Now, in its second year, the 2019-2020 Council is comprised of 13 Temple Terrace students from 6 different area high schools. This group of young people has committed to continuing the relationship with the Boys and Girls Clubs, as well as raising awareness of assisting victims of human trafficking in our area. Look for them at the Arts and Craft Festival next month, handing out information, as well as hosting an activity in which people from the community can decorate pillowcases that will be filled with toiletries and other small gifts and delivered to a local human trafficking safe house. And hopefully, several years down the road, look for them in leadership positions in local philanthropy, business, and government. This evening, we are delighted to recognize TICO's ongoing support of continued success of the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council as a bronze level sponsor. And I will present this to you.
Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Vice Mayor and Council, thanks very much for the recognition and the opportunity to be here. We're very happy to support the Youth Leadership Council. It's a great program. We're happy to be involved from the inaugural year last year and see it to continue for all the things it's done for the students, the leadership development, and the knowledge that they're getting from the community. We think it's a great program to have to be part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denham.
Take care.
Appreciate you being here. All right, next our next order of business is the Proclamation, Florida City Government Week, and I will call Miss Jeannie Barlow and Miss Lori Hayes to the podium, please. Good evening, ladies. The writing is getting smaller, so I have to put my glasses on. Whereas city government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas Florida City Government Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas this week, October 21st through the 27th of 2019, offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people. And whereas the Florida League of Cities and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Florida City Government Week offers an important opportunity to convey all the citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now therefore, I, Frank Chalura, by the virtue authority vested in me as Vice Mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim as follows: that the City of Temple Terrace does encourage all citizens, city government officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that Florida City Government Week, October 21 through 27th, 2019, is recognized and celebrated accordingly. That the City of Temple Terrace does encourage educational partnerships between city government and schools. That the City of Temple Terrace does support and encourage all city governments to actively promote and sponsor the week of October 21 through 27, 2019, as Florida City Government Week. And I will come down and present this to you, ladies.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and council members. The City of Temple Terrace is once again participating in Florida League of Cities, Florida City Government Week, by partnering with Florida College to hold City Government Day in Temple Terrace next Tuesday, October 22nd. This is the third year that we have worked with Florida College students to celebrate Government Day in Temple Terrace. It is a great way to engage students in city government and show them firsthand how government works. Laurie and I met with the students 10 days in advance of the event to allow them to select real issues that the students research and consider prior to presenting the issue to the City Council at a mock City Council meeting. On the day of the event, the students will meet with the department directors to learn about what each department does and to fine-tune their issues prior to the City Council meeting. Our mayor will also be working with a student who will be role-playing as mayor and 2 students who will be role-playing as council members. Some of the issues that we have addressed in past Government Day events include whether or not chickens should be allowed in the city, the need for a new police department, streamlining public records requests, city utility service in areas outside the city limits, and changing the traditional 8-hour, 5-day work week to a 10-hour, 4-day work week. This year, students will be considering such issues as emotional support animals in public facilities, homeless people in city parks, speeding in residential areas, the needs assessment for an EOC, and stray cats. In the past, the students have done a fantastic job. The amount of thought and preparation that they put into this exercise is quite impressive. We encourage you to join us next Tuesday, but if you are unable, we will be showing the meeting on YouTube, so you can watch it at your convenience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, our next item is Ms. Kim Straub, the Temple Terrace Arts Council. Please come forward. Good evening, ma'am. The Temple Terrace Arts Council, through Kim Straub, is the recipient of 2 Hillsborough County grant awards to provide funding for local artists to paint murals on the decorative walls on 56th Street at both Bush Boulevard and River Hills Drive intersections. Kim was going to provide information on the design, concepts, and the artist. Good evening, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Actually, since you said that, I don't have much left to say, so I'll be really fast.
Those are my notes.
I'm so happy to be able to share great information that's going to be wonderful for our city. It is that we are the proud recipients of the Community Arts Impact Grant Program. In the past, this was only given to neighborhood associations, and we were not eligible to apply. And I think it was about the 1st of August when Madam Mayor let us know that these grants were available. So right away, we were jumping on, okay, what would make sense? What can we use these for? And as it turns out, I've been collecting information from people here at the city for about 2 years. What do you like about Temple Terrace? What is it that's so cool about it? What would you like to see for art? And we all know that we would love to get more art in the city, I hope. So the CAIG, just so that you know what that is, the purpose of the grant is to make arts and cultural opportunities more accessible, to support programs with geographic, ethnic, and age diversity, to provide access for veterans and people with disabilities. Oh, I guess I should go to the next here. Yeah, the red button is not working.
Is it on the side?
And it worked this afternoon, so. That's when you showed me.
No, this way.
Oh. Here we go. Okay. And also to provide a training opportunity for small businesses who are seeking support from the county. And the projects that it has awarded will be from November 1 this year through to September 15th. And the funding for each grant is up to $5,000. The CAIG is managed by the Arts Council of Hillsborough County, but it's funded actually by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. They're the ones who are behind the funding for it. So what we were able to do was to apply as the Arts Council for the intersection of River Hills, and then to apply as the Preservation Society for the main intersection of Bush and 56. So what I've heard from people is that what they like so much about Temple Terrace is it's beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. Flora, the trees, the flowers, and the other thing is the history. Temple Terrace is just rich with history. The golf course, the Temple Oranges, Bertha Palmer, and so many people don't know about that. So the first grant just is going to be started in December, and I have an artist who has already gone ahead and given us a sketch. There will be 4 separate artists. Oh, there we go. So this is what the intersection looks like now. And I think that these walls were erected in 2005, maybe, with the purpose of putting art on them. So it's really exciting that we're now at a point where we are going to be able to do that. And now I'm going to show you what it would look like with art on it. There you go. So as you can see, it has the orange, it has the trees, it has the knees, it's got palms on it, and I think it's beautiful. Each corner of the intersection will have a different design on it by 4 different diverse artists with diverse styles. The next intersection, which is the one in the middle of the downtown, oh, and that was artist Knapp, as it said there, Mike Knapp. This one is going to be managed by the Arts Council, but with the help of the Preservation Society, who is going to be the holder or the keeper of the accuracy of the history. This is going to be a beautiful, vintage, nostalgic story of Temple Terrace. It's going to represent, very much like the book on Temple Terrace history, all the wonderful things that go on in Temple Terrace or have gone on in Temple Terrace, including the turpentine trees, the oranges, et cetera. And it'll be done in a very realistic and very soft and nostalgic, sophisticated style. That we're in the process of doing a call to artists for, and we'll start doing that after November 1st when we can begin spending money. These 2 intersections together have about 60,000 people who travel through them each day. They're very important to our city and how people are welcome to our city. And I think that what we're planning to do here is going to make a big difference. So I was thinking about this, and I had a bag back there that I have a collection of 200 different things that people have told me about Temple Terrace. Many of them are the same thing. I hear it over and over again. And I thought, well, we're going to get these intersections to be beautiful, welcome people to the city. They are by bus stops, so everyone will have access. It will be free to see them. There's no admission, anyone can see them. And with the traffic lights, people will be sitting at intersections, they'll be able to enjoy them. And I thought, well, what would we check? What would we say that success looks like for these when they're finished? And I think that I'll throw these out there. I think that this is a collaborative project. This is not going to be people in the city painting on this project. It would be far too dangerous for that to happen because these intersections are very, very busy. Artists will paint each artist will paint their own corner and will be well supervised. And I want to thank Charles for helping me out with the numbers and figuring out what this was actually going to cost us and what needed to be done to the corners to prepare them. Another thing about success is I think that we'll have ownership of this because if everyone is collaborating or people are involved in the process of this, there will be a sense of ownership in it. It will be a welcoming entrance to our city, an effective visualization of Temple Terrace because so many people have and can continue to come forth with their notions about what's important to them about our great city. It will have access for everyone because of the location and be free, and I believe that it truly will be a memorable experience. So that's the end of my presentation. If anybody has any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, our next item is a presentation of the Census 2020, and Constance Hill. Good evening, ma'am. Please come forward. She is the Partnership Specialist, Atlanta Regional Census Center. and she will make a presentation. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. Cheryl Mooney, City Clerk, thank you for getting me on the agenda. As I was said, I am the Partnership Specialist. I'm here in Hillsborough County with the Atlanta Regional Census Center. And what I'm going to do tonight is just basically give you some what, why, when, those kinds of quick questions or information. You have in front of you packets. In those packets are some of the same material, but in more depth. You also have my contact information, so if you want to get in touch with me later, you certainly can do that. So what is the decennial, the 2020 Census decennial? It's simply counting people. We count everyone living in the United States every 10 years. And why do we do this? Number one, it is mandated in the Constitution. The Constitution states that we count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Also, it is for political power. The Constitution also says that based on the numbers or the population shift, that it determines how many seats each state gets. For example, in 2010, the state of Texas got 4 seats, and Florida was next with 2 seats, as opposed to Louisiana, who lost a seat. So that is very something that we really want to keep. We're slated to maybe gain an additional seat, but we also have Mississippi, South Carolina, and Georgia coming after us. So we are trying to get everybody counted so that we can maintain the 2 seats that we gained in 2010 and also get the other one. And also, it is about money. It is $675 billion at stake. With Florida's share of that $675 billion per year for the next 10 years is going to be based on the count, based on counting people. And so how are we going to do this? This time, I think all before, you would receive your questionnaire in the mail, fill it out, and you put it back in the mail. This time, we have a new initiative. This is the first time in 2020 that the census questionnaire will be online. You will be able to go online with your cell phone, with your handheld or your laptops. Wherever you can get online, you'll be able to go online and do the census. That is going to be the primary way to get people to respond to the census. If they can't do that, the secondary way is going to be a toll-free number. The toll-free number is going to be supported by at least 12 different languages, and each language will have their own toll-free number, as so not to get people frustrated by being transferred from one number to another. So you will call, that person will call their particular toll-free number and give their census information over the phone. That is the second way that we're going to be able to take the census. And right now, I just want to say a little bit about the information and the confidentiality and privacy of it. Everybody is concerned about keeping their information safe. And one thing that I can say as a census employee, we are mandated, we take an oath for life while we are employed and not employed, not to disseminate, not to give out anybody's information, any information whatsoever about the census. If we do, we can be charged with a felony of over $250,000 and or a sentence up to 5 years in prison. As far as the how they collect your information, the census uses all kinds of systems to keep your information safe. They undergo changes every day. They monitor it very closely to make sure that it hasn't been breached. They take very careful consideration of the information that they collect. Also, your personal information, anybody's information, is kept for 72 years before it is released. We cannot release your information to any law enforcement agency at all, and we cannot release your information to any other agency that perhaps give out services to people. Some people are afraid that if I give my information, I'm going to get cut off with my services. We cannot give your information out. It is protected by Title 13 of the U.S. Code. So why am I here? What are the benefits, first of all, of the census? I pretty much know that Tampa Terrace is on it. This is my first census, but I have done my research. I know that Tampa Terrace participated with the census in 2010. So the benefits are many, but some of them, of course, allows you to plan for transportation, allows you to plan for schools, allows for Medicaid, for hospital, for hospice. It also allows you to design facilities for the disabled, for the elderly, and also for children. And also, it gives grants, like the Arts Council grants, too, comes from the census data and census money. One thing that we always like to say is that the money follows the numbers, not the need. You may need to have your roads redone, but if the numbers don't support it, you don't get the roads redone. In doing my research, in 2010, Temple Terrace was a partner with the census, and they did, I think, 9 events, and also committed to 17 commitments to help the 2010 census count. And I am really happy to say that Tampa Terrace response rate was 70%, when the overall response rate for the state of Florida was 72. So Tampa Terrace really did their job in counting people. So I'm here tonight to ask you guys to consider doing a complete count committee. So what is a complete count committee? It is where the highest elected official is the chairperson, and that official appoints a liaison. That liaison is the go-between the council and the Census Bureau. And then once you do that, you want to choose some subcommittees and some subcommittee chairpersons. Hopefully they come from every segment of your community, your government, business, all your constituents. You want to have somebody that represent your unique city. And once you do that, you want to focus in on the hard to count. As I said, Tampa Terrace had a 70% response rate. So how does the census determine response rates is historically, they can kind of predict who's going to respond, what area is going to respond and not. So they would like for the complete count committees to focus in, of course, everybody, because we need everybody to be counted, but they want you to focus in on what they consider hard to count. Hard to count can be just areas. They can also be groups of people. For example, one group of people that are very hard to count are children 5 and under. There are a number of different reasons that we can guess, but 1 million children were missed in the 2010 census. So that's a lot of money that was not did not come to Florida because we missed 1 million children. So we are asking you to focus in, if you want to form the complete count committees, that you kind of horn in on that particular segment of the population. I know that there are 2 census tracts in Tampa Terrace. They consider low response rate as being 25% and higher. One of the census tracts in Tampa Terrace is almost there. It's 24%. So it did pretty well. One of the census tracts is 30%. So that is one of the areas that we would like for the Complete Count Committee to focus in on. So that is my overview. Like I said, is much more information and material in your packets. If you have a chance to read them, have questions, you can call me, email me, ask me to come back, whatever, whatever is best. What will you get from us? We will help you form the Complete Count Committee. We will provide you with materials. We will also attend your events. We will help you in any way that we possibly can. We are trying to count everyone once and only once and in the right place. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We do have a council member that would like to ask you a question. Anybody else?
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Hill. I'm just curious, when you were talking about the response rate, for instance, 70%, how do you know the 30% of the people, if they didn't respond, how do you know they exist and that they're here? That's the part that I'm wondering
That they're
about.
here in Tampa Terrace?
Right, you
Or
said
did
we
they-
had a 70% response rate, but if they didn't respond, how do you count the negative? How do you know that there's 30% more people?
I don't know exactly how they know. I can ask that question, but census.gov is very, I don't know if you've ever been on that website, you can get lost. That is where I got the numbers, 70%. I went to census.gov, also put in Tampa Terrace, and they show the response rate. There's also a tool, a web application called Roam, and that's when you can drill down and get your 2 tracts, or either one of your tracts. It'll tell you everything about that tract, who's there, how many housing, how many children under 6, and where they are. So that is where we get our numbers from.
If I may, at the Florida League of Cities Convention, there was a big symposium, whatever, a big meeting on the census, and they indicated that there was 70% of the original mailings were responded to. Then they had to, that's how it came back. Then they had to go back and knock on doors and make phone calls and so forth. So the response rate is to the initial mailing. That's how they knew who was missing.
And one other really important thing that I left out, I think I did, you will be invited to respond to the census this time. And you will see that information, that invitation will be coded. And it will go out March 12th, and it will say, go online and respond to the census. You'll get several follow-up invitations with that code. That is the only way that you can get online and do the census. The last reminder is going to be a letter that is going to go out April 24th through April 27th. In that letter will be a paper response. You will still be able to go online at that time, but you can also do it with the paper response. After that, that is when we start our enumeration and when we go knocking on the door when you haven't had. And the last thing about that is we are looking to hire. Next week is National Hiring Week. We are trying to hire over 500,000 people over the U.S. Those jobs will begin in January, but we're trying to hire them now. And the jobs pay according to each individual area. Here in Hillsborough County, the minimum wage, their wage jobs, hourly jobs, paid weekly, is $13.50, with the highest being $23.50. And it just depends on what you do. They have outside field jobs, the ones that knock on the door, and they also have office jobs as well. So we are hopeful that you can help us hire some people. We want to hire in their own communities, so if they do have to knock on the door, they are trusted voices, they are people from the neighborhood, and they are more likely to respond to them and give them the information that they want. Inside your packet is a job information that you can either put up anywhere, but it'll give you more information about the job. Could be a little, the only thing about the job is that you have to be at least 18, you have to be a citizen and have a Social Security card and an email address. That is, and then of course you will need to do a fingerprint They do not automatically refuse anybody that comes back with something. They will take that on a case-by-case basis. But we are definitely looking to hire lots of people in the next 2 months.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item will be presentation to Mr. Alan Denham. He's a popular guy tonight. And he's going to give us a status report concerning several initiatives that are going on with the company.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here again. Mr. Vice Mayor and the council members, thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to take some little bit of time to share with you some things that are going on with Tampa Electric, some initiatives we have going on. And I know everyone knows who Tampa Electric is. We've been around the community for a while, certainly since 1925 when the city was founded, but we've actually started in 1899, started providing power for the community. So I think, Cheryl, we have a slide present.
Yeah, it's up.
Oh, is it up? Okay,
Brian, if you
good.
can bring it up.
Okay. All right. Well, let me,
You have the thing there. You have the clicker.
is this the one?
Yeah, just make sure it's on the left.
Little button, it's on, and look, there we go. Perfect. It's great when technology works. Well, Charles asked me to come tonight to share some information about some different initiatives, but before we get started, I just wanted, one of the first things that, there it is. Okay. Cheryl, I might let you do it for me if you don't mind. Okay, so one of the things that's most important at TECO is safety. Safety's, so I wanted to start by, as we do most TECO meetings, by giving a safety message. And very quickly, I wanted to just share with you that on the horizon, daylight savings time is coming up. So just want to remind everyone that as daylight savings times approach, as we fall back for the new year, it's a good time to remember to replace smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector batteries and make sure they're working properly, and also to check your fire extinguishers to make sure that they're working properly. So not TECO related specifically, but I wanted to kind of point out that safety is a big thing for TECO, and it's one of our top values. So a little bit about Tampa Electric. Cheryl, if you move to the next one. I'm not going to read through all these things, but just we cover most of Hillsborough County and parts of Pasco, Pinellas, and Polk County. We have over 765,000 customers, and most people would think that when it comes to peak generation that we generate most of our power in the summer months because it's so hot, but actually we achieve our peak power generation days in the winter. When it's a cold day and everyone's got their heater on and they're cooking and they've got their water heater on, those are the days that we generate the most power. So you can see our it was back in 2010 that we set our last record for that. Specific to Temple Terrace, though, there's about almost 13,000, a little less than 13,000 customers that we serve in Temple Terrace. Most of those are residential customers, except for about 1,300 that are commercial industrial customers. And you may know also that a few years ago, Tampa Electric was purchased by a company called Emera. Emera is a company out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. A lot of information on the slide and probably too small for most people to see. I'm not going to read through all of it, but just want to share with you that, as I mentioned, Emera is a Canadian company. A lot of their holdings initially were in the Northeast, in the area of Maine and Canada, but they also have holdings in the Caribbean. Matter of fact, some of our fellow team members were impacted by the hurricanes that just came through down there, the Bahamas and that area. So we're proud to be part of the Emera organization, and it's been since 2016 that they purchased Tampa Electric, and they've continued our values of community and engagement and community involvement, made some significant investments, as you'll be hearing more about in some of the things that we're doing. So Cheryl, the next slide, please. One of the things that Charles was most excited about and interested in was for me to share with you about the LED lights. I know most people are now familiar with LED lights, that the incandescent bulbs that we've been used to in our house are no longer available. And so LED is the wave of the future for the lighting industry. And so Tampa Electric has been on that path as well, and we're converting all of our lights to LED lights. You may have noticed almost over a year ago that we converted the lights in City Hall parking lot to LED. So you've had LEDs here for quite a while, but we're embarking on a project now to convert all of the LEDs in our service area all the lights in our service area to LEDs. There's over 200,000 lights. We're changing for several reasons. One, the existing technology is not available anymore. Two, they make more sense. The industry's moved to LEDs. They are less energy, longer life from they last much longer. And the thing that's kind of unique about what we're doing now is we're installing a smart node in these lights. So the lights will communicate with TECO and let us know when the light's out. Right now we usually don't know until someone calls us the light's out. So we'll be able to have that kind of communication. We've already started, and Sheriff, if you go to the next slide, we've already started doing conversions. Oh, actually, back up one. We've started doing conversions in Temple Terrace, started in late September. We'll be working through the Temple Terrace area. We kind of work in a grid pattern, just makes it more sense if we kind of focus our efforts in a particular grid and then move on to the next grid. So we'll be working through the first quarter of next year, replacing street lights and area lights in Temple Terrace. And just a little distinction, street light is the lights that are actually on the streets. And the area lights are usually on a customer's property, in private property, or in a parking lot, perhaps. Other initiatives that we have going on, we also have embarked on changing out all of our meters. Technology, it continues to improve, and so now we're installing what we call AMI meters, advanced metering infrastructure. These meters will allow Tampa Electric to have two-way communication with our meters. The current meters allow us to do a drive-by and pick up information from the meter to do automatic readings, but now the meters will allow two-way communication, which provides a lot of value for us. It allows us to remotely turn on and turn off service if someone moves in and out of the house. It allows us to do remote meter reading. It provides information back to us if there's an outage. Also lets us know if there's been any tampering. So there's a lot of information that we will be able to get out of these new meters, and we're excited about that. We've been working in Temple Terrace for recent months and have converted most of the meters in the area, primarily the residential meters, the single-phase meters, and we'll still be working to do non-residential meters in the coming months. Another huge initiative that we've embarked on is the Big Bend modernization. Tampa Electric has historically been known as a coal generation unit, and over time that's changed dramatically, and this is another step towards moving to cleaner sources of energy. And so we're taking some of the older units at Big Bend Power Plant down at Apollo Beach and converting those from coal to natural gas. One unit will be converted to natural gas, the other unit will be retired. So it's a great initiative for us, a huge investment that'll take us next through 2023 to actually complete the full project, and we're excited about that. Once the Big Bend modernization has been completed, will be about 75% of our energy from natural gas, about 12% from coal, and then leading into the next slide, we'll have solar. We've also are installing a lot of solar. We've made an investment and commitment to 600 megawatts of solar. Most of these are in large tracts of land in more rural areas, or we can get several hundred acres to put 75 or so megawatts of power on. We've got 10 sites that we're installing 6 million panels and enough power to power 100,000 homes in our community. So we're about 2/3 of the way through that project, and we'll be finished with that in 2021. And by the time that's completed, we'll have about 7% of our generation coming from solar, which will be the largest percentage of solar from any utility in the state. So we're excited about that. And last I'll mention, I know folks have been very familiar seeing electric vehicles out and about. They're becoming more noticeable in the community. We're seeing that trend as well, about 4,000 vehicles in the community. You see charging stations popping up in a lot of locations, governmental facilities, as well as retail and other sites. So we're happy to provide power for the new wave of cleaner electric vehicles. We've invested in fleets of electric vehicles as well for TECO, and have many vehicles that we use that use electricity. So we're very happy with that. And unless you have any other questions, I'm finished with my presentation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Al?
Great. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we are moving on now. Our next item is School Support Committee appointments. There was one vacancy on the School Support Committee, and that's to fill the unexpired term of Joe Cable. It's extending from October 15, 2019, until September 19, 2020. City did receive one application from Mr. Paul Ford. And is Mr. Ford here with us this evening?
No, I don't see him.
Nope, not here. Okay. Council?
Move to appoint Paul Ford to the School Support Committee.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Is there any further discussion? See none? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next item is the Municipal Code Enforcement Board appointment, and there is one vacancy on the board. It's for the unexpired term of Mr. Ryan Westfall, and this term extends from September 17th, 2019 until July 3rd, 2021. City received 3 applications from John Alleman, Alan Gear, and Brian Hubert. If any of these folks are here this evening and would like to say a few words, please come forward. Sure, come forward, sir. Good evening.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. So I'm John Alleman, and I have one correction. When I started with the application, I'm pretty much available because I'm retired. I couldn't put in, it wouldn't let me check both, but I am available evenings. I was out of high school. I was in the Navy for 4 years. That was, I guess, the start of my working career. And I have at least 20 years of carpentry, maintenance as a carpenter, and, remodel experience. I noticed that you requested a contractor or a subcontractor. I can't say I've ever held one of those licenses, but I have a lot of experience in the construction trades. My last 10 years of working was with at-risk youth. I started with a company called Home Builders Institute, which basically most of the young men were adjudicated. And this was an off, most of them were actually in detention centers. This one was not. And it was eye-opening, but it was rewarding in many ways. After that, I went to Hillsborough County and worked with dropout prevention at Simmons Career Center for the last 9 years. Again, extremely challenging, but extremely rewarding. And I have lived in Temple Terrace for just over 30 years. As Kim was saying, it's a very unique community, and the longer I'm here, the more I appreciate it. And now that I'm retired and I have more time to get involved in some of the things in Temple Terrace, the more I appreciate it. It's sort of like, just like every time I walk around, I go, oh, that's really neat. You have the art fair, which my wife participates in. You have the rec center, which is just unbelievable. I finally have time to work out and lose some of that weight I gained during teaching. And so one of the, aside from the wanting to give back and now having a chance to give back to this wonderful community, I think for myself, one of the biggest things, I have some construction experience, of course, and availability, is that when I see an issue before, I always want to look at both sides. And if there's a win-win situation possibility, that's what I always desire. In negotiations, if both people walk out happy, I think it's the best result. Okay. I don't know if you ask questions or if
No,
that's-
sir. Just
okay.
say a minute or two about you, and the council will make a decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is any of the other folks here with us this evening would like to say a few words? If not, you have a little ballot here in front of you. Go ahead and mark it, pass it down to the city clerk, and we will give you the results in a few short minutes.
So we had Councilmember Ross voted for Brian Hebert. Vice Mayor Chalora voted for Alan Gear, and the other 3 council members voted for John Ellerman. So I could.
Okay. Mr. Ellerman, congratulations, sir.
We can get a motion?
Yes, we go ahead, certainly entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Ellerman.
I move to approve the appointment of Mr. Allen for the Municipal Code Enforcement Board.
Okay, there's a motion to appoint Mr. Ellerman. Is there a second? Second we have. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for moving forward to serve our community.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Board of Adjustment appointment. And there is one vacancy on Board of Adjustment to fill the unexpired term of Melissa DeCambra. And this term extends from October 15, 2019 until May 21st, 2022. There was only one applicant, Ms. Annette Rennie, and I don't know that I see her here this evening. So with that, council, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to appoint Annette Rennie.
Is there a motion?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Ms. Annette Rennie is now appointed to the Board of Adjustment. We are moving on. Can I have a motion to approve minutes of the previous meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the October 1st meeting.
Okay, so motion, second? Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. At this time, we will invite folks that wish to be heard on items that are not on the agenda. You will have a 3-minute time limit, and we'll call you up in the order that these forms are filled out. And the first one is Mr. Darrell Johnson and Tree at 1159, Bill and 829. That's what this says. Come forward, sir. You have 3 minutes. Give your name and.
I'm
You have the
Darrell
floor.
Johnson, owner of Fix It by Johnson. Thank you guys for having me here tonight, council. I'm just wanting everyone to know that Resident Anthony Sabatini passed a bill on 1159 bill and 829. And pretty much the bill states a local government may not require notice, application, approval, permit fee, or mitigation for pruning, trimming, or removal of a tree residential property if the property owner obtains documentation from an arborist certified by the International Society of Arboriculture, the Florida licensed landscape architect, that the tree presents a danger to the person's property. And I had this documentation. And I got fined, and the homeowner that's with me here today got fined as well. And I have a copy of that notice. And I have a copy that the bill Anthony Sabatini had written. And I did everything, and I'm here to do the right thing in any trees. I've been doing trees. I'm 52 years old. I was introduced to this business at 13 years old. I'm here to be ethical, and I feel that this fine is not ethical that I got against me. I did the right thing by the bill. The 1159 bill, I don't want to get into the 829 bill, but the 1159 bill states exactly what I did for my business to take down this tree. And it was passed in October, the 25th. And it was doing damage to the resident's property. And that's my case. And I hired Jimmy Crawford. He isn't here today. He'll be doing a follow-up later on. I'm not here to go into that debate, but I just wanted everyone to be aware of the bill that got passed. I'm not here to try to override Tallahassee. I did exactly what my business asked me to do, buy that bill. I did nothing outside. So that's basically what I have in my case. I'm nervous because my attorney wasn't here. I haven't really spoke on, I'm a tree guy. I take down trees. I'm not here to speak. I'm just speaking the truth. I'm speaking honest. You know, I did the right thing. If I thought I was doing anything to jeopardize anyone or any foul play, I wouldn't have went there. I did exactly what the bill states. And I even got a second arborist report. If my time's up.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, our next request to speak is Mr. Amir Khan. Come forward, please. You have 3 minutes. Just state your name, and you have the floor for 3 minutes.
My name is Amir Khan. I'm a resident of Temple Terrace, and talking about the same case, I'm the property owner. I requested the city of Temple Terrace 2 years ago to cut this tree down. They refused to cut it down. My roof is getting damaged. My plumbing is getting damaged. After every couple of months, I have to go snake the lines. And I'm getting sick and tired of it, so they told me I cannot cut the tree down. Okay, fine. Then as a city contractor working on the street, I said, listen, I need to trim all the trees down, plus I need to cut this tree down. What can we do about it? He said, the new law is passed, and we could do it. I said, okay, as long as legally done. I signed up a contract with Mr. Darrell Johnson. It says on the contract that all necessary permits, whatever is required, needs to be pulled by the contractor to get the job done. At the end of the day, city is fining me $7,500. For what? I hired a licensed and insured contractor to do a job. My cars are getting damaged. Tree limbs are falling on it. How much damage do I need to suffer? And these city guys are walking on my property, on back of my property, without my permission. Without ringing a doorbell, they have no authorization to do that. And I'm very upset on it. And I got a property, another property, I got a lot of properties in Temple Terrace. Another rental property, I request the city of Temple Terrace to cut a tree down. The tree branch is falling on top of my brand new roof, and my rental property went through the roof, through the attic, into my tenant's living room, twice. Nobody ever paid for the roof damage. Nobody paid for nothing. It took them over 8 months to cut that tree down because they didn't have the resources or do whatever they need to do. So you got to be fair to us. I'm a citizen. You can't treat me like this. And can't push me around like this. It's just not the right thing to do. If I need to hire an attorney, I need to hire an attorney. Then I know, but that would be city money, and city money is my money. So I have given city people all the documentation, all the pictures. My walls have a crack about this big on the walls. So I'm not going to lose $1 million property on the river just because these people does not want to do anything about it, and they want to be fair. And I told them I could replace 10 trees on the property. I got multiple properties. I could do whatever it takes. Talk to me. But no, I'm hitting a brick wall, and that's not fair. Anything else you guys have to say?
Just for the audience, your 3-minute time is just for you to make statements. It's not an engagement period. That's why we're not responding. It's not to be rude. It's just the procedures that are in place, just so you understand that. Okay. Okay, so our next item, we are on the topic of coyotes. Seems to be a hot topic right now in our city. And the first speaker is Miss Allison Dowdy. Dowdy, come forward, please. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Allison Dowdy. I live at 319 St. Augustine Avenue, and I just want you to hear my concerns about the coyotes. Seems like their population is growing and spreading all over Temple Terrace. I know they've been at River Hills Park, all along the golf course, the rec center, all over. And I know of 3 cats that have been killed and 2 dogs that have been killed. One of the dogs was in his own yard. The lady was out at night with him, taking him out, and he was killed. My sister's cat was killed as well, and I'm not sure what really we can do about it. I know we put up some signs recently. We have warned people about bringing their cats inside, and we've been told to call the wildlife people. It seems like there should be something else we can do, though, other than just letting it go, because it just seems to be getting worse and worse. And I don't know of any people that have been hurt, but I know of some people that are kind of nervous if they walk at night because they see, coyotes in the shadows and that sort of thing. So I just wanted you to hear my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Scott Daves. Come on down. Good evening, sir.
Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Scott Daves, 330 Bellevue Avenue. I'm going to pretty much echo what Alice had said. This is becoming a serious concern around the neighborhoods. These coyotes are running pretty much all over the golf course, and the parks, the neighborhood. A lot of animals are falling to these things. These are an invasive species. They're not native to the state of Florida. Iguanas right now are open season in South Florida for the same reason. If this was an alligator, the city'd have traps out there. They'd be taking this nemesis out of the city. The signs are great, and thanks for whoever's decision that was. But I think the city needs to look at this and try to come up with a plan that's going to protect our city and our property. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daves. All right, and our next speaker is Ms. Gail Benton. Is that correct? Good evening, ma'am.
Hello, I'm happy to have an opportunity to speak about the coyotes. I agree with
Can you say
everybody.
your name and address?
Gail Benton, and I'm at 411 Belle Claire Avenue. It just seems like the problem is getting worse, and they're having babies. They have a den, we think, like at the corner of, on Bullard Parkway, right, next to the golf course at the river. And then they may have another den further down on like maybe the seventh hole. And they sometimes now I see them out in the mornings when I go out for a walk. And I'm the one that lost a cat, and then somebody else just a few houses down lost a dog. And I know there's not a good answer, and we like all the wildlife that we have, and but if we're trying to provide a safe atmosphere, and we're trying to encourage people to move into Temple Terrace, it's just really a problem. So I just wanted to express my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benton. All right, I have no other forms filled out. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council on items that are not on the agenda? If so, come forward. Okay, see nobody. Oh, come on down. Good evening. Just state your name and address. And
My name's Debbie Stodhill. I'm at 6406 East 112th Avenue. And I'm here in support of doing something about the coyotes because it is a problem. I love all animals, but other states have had a lot of problems with them, and it's getting like that in Temple Terrace, and I don't think it's what we want in our community. So I'm not used to talking, but thank you very much for your time. Something needs to be done about it. Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to address the council? Okay, see nobody. I am going to ask Mr. Stevenson a question here, not to really engage in conversation, but it seems like some of these are longtime residents here in the city, and they have this concern, not to engage a discussion right now, but how can they find out the stance of the city? Call your office? Is there something on the website? Without getting into details, how can they?
There's some information on the website that refers them back to the Fish and Game Commission for Fish and Wildlife. Staff has actually had conversations with Fish and Wildlife, and they've been very unhelpful. They basically say that they're not going to relocate them or trap them or kill them or anything else. So I just wrote myself a note to reach out to them again and maybe kind of have a little bit more direct conversation with them about what's going on.
Okay.
And certainly let them know that we have them preying on some domestic animals. And I think we did that before, but they really had very little interest in hearing this problem. Let me do some more research on what other communities are doing and we've done. And we'll kind of report back to council, and certainly, I understand everyone's concern. I've got them living in my neighborhood as well. I just watch my cats. I don't know what else to do, but, you know, we have all heard stories of them attacking people, walking their dogs and whatnot. It's been on the news. I just don't know how we can prompt fishing wildlife or fishing wildlife commission to do something if they're not interested in doing it. But we got to run up the ladder a little bit. We'll do just that.
Okay. I just wanted those folks to know that staff has been looking at this some way. It's not, your comments aren't being ignored. Unfortunately, I think it's beyond our jurisdiction. So once they look at it, but, you know, I think this is, the severity of this is, it's a life and safety issue where some people are, you know, in fear.
If we can have a couple weeks, we'll bring back somewhat of a report.
Okay, super.
Back to next meeting.
Okay, thank you,
That'll
sir.
work.
Appreciate it. Okay, with that, we are moving on. The next item is the Municipal Code Enforcement Lien Reduction. And the first property address is 8521 Queen Brooks Court. And I will call the Municipal Code Enforcement Board Chair, Mr. Richard Schmidt, and he will present the, oh, good evening. You're already ready to go. Thank you.
I'm ready.
Come on down. Let's go.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor, sir.
No, I haven't. No, I'm not going to say it.
And council members. I'm here this evening to introduce to the board a recommendation for a lien reduction for the property located at 8521 Queensbrook Court with the lien amount of $2,100. The city versus BB Nazmali in case number 16836. 0836. This case originated in May of 2016. The lien reduction request was presented to the board at the September 11th, 2019 board meeting by Director Baroni. At the time the property came into compliance, a fine amount had occurred to the amount of $2,100. After hearing from Director Baroni, the presenter's daughter, Sadie Aladdin, and board discussion, the recommendation as presented to the board by Director Baroni was to reduce the lien from $2,100 to $550. By a motion of 5-1, the recommendation to council is for the lien to be reduced to $550, with a stipulation that the reduced lien amount be paid in full within 30 days of the city council approval, or the lien amount will revert back to the full amount of $2,100. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And don't believe the petitioner is here this evening.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
wait, hold on. We haven't gotten that far yet. Let me go down my list here. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any staff comments on this item? No? Okay. And now at this point, I will ask the property owner or representative if they would like to come forward and speak on this item. Just state your name and address and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sadia Aladdin, and I live at 8521 Queen Brooks Court, Temple Terrace. This lien was there before my mother purchased the house, and I did offer to pay $200. That would benefit Temple Terrace, the beautiful city. And thank you.
Thank you. And anybody else?
Probably the sweetest presentation we've ever had.
Yeah, short and sweet. That's good. Okay, anybody in the public would like to address the council, so come forward at this time. Okay, see nobody? Council members? What is your response? It's your pleasure.
Make a motion that the board, let me start over. I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the code board, reduce the fine in this case to $550 contingent upon it being paid within 30 days or it reverts back to the original amount.
I second
Okay,
that.
we have a motion.
I was going to second, if I got a question, does the petitioner understand that it's 500 and not 200?
550.
550 and not 200? I mean, I think she just said 200 a minute ago.
I did offer to pay 200.
She offered to pay 200, but we
What,
had,
what we're talking about, guys, is the recommendation of the board. We're not here to discuss the facts of the case. We're looking at the board recommendation. So if you want to take the board recommendation, or you want to do something different, but I don't want to, take it off in left field.
that's correct.
Obviously, the board made a recommendation to us, so that's where we are.
No, I agree, and I'm in agreement with it, but there seems to be an issue with the petitioner. That's all I'm saying.
Well, she
Okay,
had
I'm fine.
stated that at the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and and the motion maker put a condition on it that if it's not paid within the 30-day period, it will revert back to the original amount. So, okay, we have a motion. There's a second. Is there any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case is 7911 Straub Bluffs Court, and Mr. Schoen will explain. Good evening.
Thank you. This also started off as a lien reduction case, but because the property was in foreclosure, and because of the timing of the filing of the foreclosure and the lis pendens and the filing of the city's lien, our lien was essentially extinguished. Therefore, this sort of turned into more of a settlement of the lien than a usual reduction of the lien. Our code enforcement board did not have the discretion that it normally does in our other lien reduction cases. The representative from U.S. Bank did come before the board, did make an offer to settle up this matter so that we could do a prompt release of the lien and clear this off of their books, clear this off of our books, and made an offer to pay I believe it was $1,500. During the code enforcement board meeting, somebody had brought up that there was a utility balance on this. That really should not really be a factor when it comes to our liens, because those are reduction of liens imposed because of code violations and not because of utilities. However, again, the representative from the bank quickly and graciously offered to cover or make a recommendation to his client to cover the utility balance as well. It was my impression when we concluded that that would also be paid. So I'm here really today to present this to you as a settlement of this lien case for the amount of $1,500 plus $512.21. The $1,500 did cover the city's costs that were involved in the code case, and that's where we are today. So since this was different, but until we have other procedures established, this is before you as though it were a regular lien reduction recommendation, asking for your approval. But I have to tell you, again, there's not a whole lot of discretion here. I don't know if is a representative from I thought that was him. So the representative from the bank is here. If he's got a disagreement with what I've said, then this would probably be the time. But that's how this case proceeds. So,
Sure. State
Good
your
evening.
name.
My name is Manny Iravedra. My address is Hinshaw and Culbertson, 100 South Ashley Drive, Suite 500, Tampa, Florida, 33602. I'm here representing U.S. Bank N.A. I have nothing to add to the remarks of Ms. Sishone, the city attorney. We are in agreement with the recommendation of the board, and with that, I defer to the council.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments from the staff? No? Okay, thank you. That was the representative of the property owner that just spoke. And with that, council members, is there anybody in the public that would like to address this council? If so, come forward. I don't see anybody. Okay, with that, council, what's your pleasure?
Move to accept the MCEB lien release for 7911 Shore Bluff Court, given all the conditions of 30 days, et cetera.
Second.
You mean that has to be paid within 30 days or it'll revert? Yes, sir. Okay, there's a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? See none? Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, there was an additional agreed-upon contingency that they were going to pay the outstanding utility balance of $512.21, which I understand we don't have the legal authority to compel, but that was part of the agreed-upon settlement. Could we add that?
That's correct.
To the motion?
Yes.
So the motion maker would incorporate Mr. Ross's comments and.
May I make one small request? My client would like to pay both of those amounts with one check. I don't know if that would be an issue.
That also was part of the agreed-upon settlement.
Okay.
All right, so it's for a total of $2,012.21.
Okay, all right. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Do not see any. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for your cooperation, sir. Okay, moving on. Resolutions recognizing the appointment of Peter Steffens to the City Audit Committee. Mr. Stevenson, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Before you is a resolution this evening to appoint Peter Steffens to the city's audit committee. We have an opening there with the changes that we had. Mr. Schischler is our council liaison. We need an appointment to fill a CPA's requirement. Mr. Steffens and I had phone conversations, and he had volunteered to do that. I believe he's here. If he would like to come up and say a few words, my recommendation would be to pass this resolution approving Mr. Steffens to the CPA Audit Committee. His term will run consistent with the current audit contract that we have in place until September 30th of 2020. At that point in time, we'll have to redo this again. So I don't know that I have any more details to add, but certainly this is a volunteer position that Mr. Steffens has offered to do.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Steffens, would you like to say a few words? If you would, great. If not?
I don't know that I have anything.
Okay, perfect.
I'll verify I am a CPA.
Okay, super. Thank you, sir. All right. Is there anybody, any public comments? Anybody from the public would like to address this council? If so, come forward. See nobody. All right, council members, motion's acceptable. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Mr. Peter Steffens to the Audit Committee.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? See none? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to serve our city, sir. All right, our next item, a resolution revising Resolution 096-10 to comply with state statutes regarding audit selection procedures. Mr. Stevenson, you're on again.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Steffens. I appreciate you volunteering and stepping up. This resolution is being brought before you to get us up to speed with the current law that was passed in July of this year. There were some changes that were made to the requirements of City Audit Committee in that this current process that we have in place right now was done in 2010 with the Resolution 096-10, and it laid out a policy for us to, in fact, fill the vacancies and fill the needs of the City Audit Committee. Some of the changes, the major change that has been put in place July of this year was that the city manager or the finance director could no longer be an active member of that committee. They could sit as an advisory individual but not be part of the audit committee. The Audit Committee requires 3 members, one being a CPA, one being a council representative, and we have now, with the change in the law, the need to go back out and hire someone else to fill that 3rd spot. The resolution that is in front of you basically just lays out the new policy in consistency with the new law that was passed in July. So with that, I'll ask that council approve the resolution that outlines those changes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there any one from the public that would like to comment or address the council on this item? If so, come forward. See nobody coming forward. Council members, any questions?
I guess my only question is, will you offer this up immediately upon resolution acceptance?
Seeing that we're getting to the point of doing our CAFR and starting our CAFR, yeah, we'll get this going real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve the resolution revising Resolution 096-10 to comply with Florida Statute 218.391.
Okay, motion a second. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, our next item is council business. Any council business to come before us this evening? We do?
Yeah, one more.
I'm trying to go quick, man. I'm trying to move this thing along.
You have reservations somewhere?
No, just trying to move it along.
We appreciate
Okay,
this.
resolution establishing a policy for the sale and disposal of surplus property. I was just seeing if you guys are paying attention.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A few meetings ago, we had council request that staff work on coming up with a written policy, if you would, for the disposal of surplus property. We have, in fact, incorporated that policy into this resolution. Hopefully, everyone's had a chance to read it. It is A through J. It pretty much outlines the steps that we anticipate taking with the disposal of surplus property here in the future. With that, I'll stand for any questions. If council has got questions or any modifications to the resolution that council would like to weigh in on, we're open for discussion. So.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address the council on this item? If so, come forward. See nobody? All right, council members, any questions? No questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution on the disposal of surplus land.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schischler. Second by Mr. Ross. Any further comments? See none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
All right, our next item is council business. Is there any council business to come before us this evening?
Old business?
Council business is what it
Council
says, so you
Well,
take it as you wish, sir.
Okay. If I may, Mr. Vice Mayor, this probably is the best time to bring up the issue with the Tampa Terrace Golf and Country Club. I believe, not the last meeting, but the one before that, September 17th, I think it was, 16th or 17th, the discussion of the city participating in the irrigation venture for the golf course. As part of the SAC committee, we've had several meetings, or 2 or 3 meetings, I guess, with the club representatives, and we think we came up with a plan that might work. Everybody, I think council members should have gotten a copy of this electronically on Friday, and I'd like to go over it if I could, but is there a way we could show the public what this, Charles?
No, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
You go over the numbers then?
Pardon me?
You probably should just go over.
I'll go over I was planning on doing it anyway. Okay. What we're looking at is a total project of about $1.119 million. That's tax, tag, and title. That's equipment, pipe, installation, and contingency, and even given a rebate back by the manufacturer. That's the total venture cost. So what we were looking at is the club has gone out and solicited some matching grants in the last year. They did a good job with that. They got a grant for Swift Mud and a grant from the Hillsborough County Historical Grant, totaling $305,000. And one of the proposals that I'd like for council to consider, and we've shared this with the club and our indications with Mr. Music, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, was that they were acceptable. This was acceptable to them. They would match those dollars with internal funding. By that, I mean the members would fund that. So we're looking at $305,000 from the members, $305,000 in their matching grants, for a total of $610,000. The balance of $509,000, which would include, and again, these are round numbers because we don't know specific yet, but they should be close enough given the specifications that we've been given of the design of the project. About $370,000 in piping costs, and another $140,000 or so, $139,000 or so in installation costs, for a total city contribution of $509,000 total. For this would be essentially a complete funding of the entire project. And I want to share this with council so that this is where we stand right now and see council's reaction, questions, where do we go from here? Mr. Stevenson, if you have any additional information that you want to add, now would be a good time for you to offer that. But if, just trying to get a sense from the council as to where we want to go with this. The project would be done over 2 fiscal years, and it would not start until late next summer, so that it would go over the 2 years. The city the club has to commit to the fundraising, and we've requested that all the funding, the club member funding, be fully funded and in the bank by March 31st of 2020 before we would proceed. And there was any failure to do that, I mean, we wouldn't be able to go forward. It would have to, it would stop. So I think this works, and I believe that it's something that we can work with the country club on and get this project done. Any questions or comments or?
Are there any questions? Mr. Chambers, go ahead.
Yeah, at that meeting, 2 meetings ago, I thought there was some deadline the club had, I think October 20th, for some signing to save some money. Is that figured in this? Is there something we have to do for that?
There has to be a commitment. We don't have to sign any contracts, to my knowledge. There has to be a commitment on our part that if the club does what they say they're going to do, then we're going to say we're going to do what we say we're going to do. Okay, but I'm not aware of any contract that needs to be inked before the 21st.
There is not any financial obligation that anyone has to put up at this time. I know that Mr. Music had been having some conversations with Toro to keep that rebate in place, so on and so forth. I think really what the club is looking for is a commitment from council that in fact we're going to engage in this collaboration with them. I think really that's what they need right now in order to start doing what they need to do on their end. Obviously, they don't want to do that unless they know they've got our financing piece of the pie. But to echo what Mr. Schiffler said, that it's one of those things that I think is workable, especially if we do this over a couple fiscal years, being later this year and 2021.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
I do.
Yeah, Mr. Ross, go ahead.
I've got a couple questions. First of all, the last time we discussed this here, we had, I guess, tasked you, Mr. Stevenson, with going back and looking at because this would be over the course of 2 fiscal years, but one of the first of those 2 fiscal years would be the year that we've already established the budget for. So we had asked you with finance to go back and look through your budget and see if we would be able to come up with our portion of the money, and if so, where it would come from. The other, and maybe you've done that, I don't know, but the other thing about this, when I saw this the other day, was it's unfortunate that Mr. Music is not here. I know we have some club members, but I don't know if they're empowered to speak for the board tonight. So if they're in agreement with this, I mean, I'm not questioning that. If they've indicated to you that they are, that's fine. If the board has said, yes, we're in agreement with this. But I'd sure want to make sure they are, because we didn't commit to anything at our last meeting, but we did all kind of look at these numbers, which I had access to before our meeting. I mean, I knew what numbers they were going to give us before they gave them to us. I'm assuming everybody else did too. And we all kind of tentatively gave a nod of approval to this funding scheme. And now it seems like we've gone back and increased what's expected of their membership by $43,000 and decreased our commitment by $61,000. I'm looking at both sets of numbers, and I'm not real clear how that changed. I'm not sure where these new numbers were arrived from. And so I guess my point is, if the club management is in agreement to ponying up $43,000 more, I'm certainly all in favor of that. I don't have any objections to that. But if not, it looks as though it's kind of we're trying to take another bite at the apple here a little bit and get them to pony up more than what we asked them to pony up originally. So two things is, one is, how are we going to pay our part, whether it's these numbers or these numbers? We still have a chunk of money we have to pay. Where's that money going to come from? And two is the club really on board with this increase in their share? If so, that's great. I mean, I think that's fine. But if not, how did this come about?
Just for
let me answer. And our meeting with Mr. Music on Friday, certainly he left our office, and Mr. Sisley and I met with him. He left my office certainly with the impression that this was something that was workable with the country club. Okay. If Mr. Nertney can weigh in on that here in a second. As far as our portion of the funding, when we originally started talking to the club about this a couple of months ago, our contribution was about $370, and just buying pipe. So we have ponied up a little bit more money. I think that we're looking to work this through the Water and Sewer Fund that has a balance in there that I think we can work with without affecting any projects this year. And certainly, I think that we can make it work if we split this into 2 fiscal years. Certainly, the impact is a lot less from year to year. But I do think that everybody's comfortable. We've had conversations about working this through the Water and Sewer Fund, and everybody is comfortable with the balance of that fund. And
can we spend, so we can do this type of project within the guidelines of that enterprise fund?
Yes, sir. We're comfortable with doing that.
Okay.
To answer your other question, the set of numbers that you're looking at was the club's original proposal.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of sort of renegotiated or further discussion and analysis as to what we can come up with from the city's perspective. We didn't change our numbers. It's just the different sources of the numbers.
I would suggest maybe a little different approach. I think at the last council meeting there was a consensus that the folks that are up here were in favor of assisting, as long as you would look into this thing a little further. Number one, we did get an email from Mr. Stevenson a week or two ago, but we are public servants. What I don't like is this was not on the agenda, it's just popping up. Mr. Stevenson said, yes, we may be talking about this on our notes, but general public knows nothing about it. It's not our job to do it that way, because I'll tell you, if people aren't in favor of this, they're going to be looking at us with cross eyes, say, hey guys, that's a lot of money. What are you doing? Why didn't we know about it? And it just popped up on their new business. So I just want to put out a firestorm before a fire starts. Hopefully it doesn't start. Okay, so if there is consensus to go there, and I'm not opposed to it, so I'm not bringing it up, but I think the appropriate way to do it is to be as transparent as possible, is to have it on an agenda, have a clear official or unofficial agreement in place, because over here these little notes say not to exceed or matching to member funding. You got to define it all. You got to fine tune. You got to box this thing in so there is no, moving around and fudging, because we've been in wars in this room over agreements and wording and all the above. And what I don't want is a council a year from now or 2 years from now to have a boxing match with the decision that we made that's not fully documented, okay? I don't want to prolong it, but at the same time, I want to make sure it's very transparent and done, agenda item. You can have Mr. Music here or Mr. Nertney or whoever wants to be here. But it's something that we have a guideline to go by, the general public sees it, and this is what we're going to commit not to exceed. So I think in order for us to do our civic duty, our job, and our responsibility, we have to be transparent. If we agree on something, that's great, but we're working for 26,000 people out there. So we just, that's all. I don't want to roadblock it. I'm just saying, I think it would be appropriate to do it that way.
To be clear, this was just bringing up as an existing project, if you will,
I
that's going
understand.
forward. I was not asking for a motion.
I know. Well,
And I was not suggesting one.
The discussion was like to see the council's sentiment about it, and I don't want to give the club the wrong impression. We're all on board, and all of a sudden you have a room full of people, and then we have to pull the plug. That's not the way we want to do business. We want to be in a partnership where we're working on this thing together, and the golf course has taken huge strides in the right direction, okay? And I know you all have seen it, I've seen it. And whether you like the country club and you don't like the golf course, whatever it may be, it adds value to the city of Temple Terrace, period. Your home has more value because you have this in your city. But I would like to see this as an agenda item, a defined responsibility from both parts. If you don't meet your matching funds, we're not going to give you the money. We're not going to exceed this. It needs to be clearly defined as to who's doing what. And then once you have that, then we move forward. Because we're not talking about a few $1,000s here. This is, big money. So I would like to make sure that if, when we go there, not if, when we go there, that it's done in a public forum properly, and it's vetted, and then we're all on the same page. And, unless somebody feels any differently, but I just...
Put on the agenda for the next meeting, whatever.
Okay.
Next agenda meeting.
Okay. Well, that's not going to, and that won't hinder with their plans?
Well, no, I don't believe so. Again, I don't know that, we didn't bring this for a vote tonight. This is just general discussion. I've spent a lot of hours on this in the last couple of weeks, and I've got a lot of pokers in the fire, and it really become a project that I didn't really want to take on. But it is one of those things that we need to address with the club, and I just need to know if council is willing to partner with the club in moving forward. We can certainly come up with an agreement, a resolution, put it on the agenda, and have a public hearing. So it was never intended to get a motion for approval here. But the club is also just interested in is the council's general sentiment to move forward, okay? Understanding that we can draw up an agreement and certainly a resolution approving that agreement, so on and so forth.
And I think at the last meeting, there was a sentiment that there was, good vibes about it. But I think if we can formalize what we think and they think is expected of each other, certainly can make this a much smoother trip. So
Yeah, and between last meeting and this meeting, Mr. Mayor, we really didn't even have solid numbers that we were talking with the club about.
I get it.
So, we've made some progress. The city is in a position that I think is workable, and certainly within the parameters of how we intend to do this, as far as our involvement with the club. And certainly the club has a commitment to come up with some funding as well. And, you know, we can't wait forever to
Right, I
have
get
them
it.
do that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I think moving forward, if in fact it's a sentiment of council for me to continue working on this, I'd be more than happy to. But I don't want to continue if the sentiment is no.
Right, and I commend you, Mr. Fischler, Mr. Music, for getting together and bringing us to this point. I just want to make sure that it's clear, it's in black and white, and everybody knows where everybody's going, and the general public have been put on notice that this is what we're doing, so there's no, I didn't know about it, it wasn't on the agenda. Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Stevenson, what do you need from us so you know our intention? Do you want a motion? What do you
I'm sorry?
need? Do you, it's on.
No, just, you know, kind of just a nod. I mean, if you guys want me to move forward, let me know. and we'll
I
get
think
it-
we gave you that
we'll get it
last
on.
time.
Okay.
I think that was given last time.
No,
That's why you went forward.
Well, we didn't give you numbers last time, so again,
We'll talk numbers, some
we've
numbers,
given
but-
you kind of a lay of the land, and it's our understanding that the club is okay with those numbers, so.
Okay, does anybody have any issues with Mr. Stevenson moving forward?
No.
And based on discussion we've had? Go ahead. Ms. Dunn.
I have no issue. I would like to see Mr. Stevenson put this in, as you said, put it in black and white. These are the defined numbers, these are the defined dates. I mean, the date does seem a little unusual since last time we heard this. It was like, we really need to know this now, and now we're saying, we can talk about it in November and make a decision. I do think that we need to give clear signal that says we're in agreement, because, as you know, we're sitting here saying we're in agreement, and then, you know, we get 5 speakers, and we change our minds.
Right.
I'm talking to people asking this question ever since it was brought to us. And it's amazing the change in sentiment that is out there, because the country club has shown what an active partner it is in the city. So I don't think you're going to get but let's not tempt fate. But I do think that it sounds to me, and I would really like us to, we're not making a motion, but I think you're seeing a general consensus of nodding heads. And if that's good enough, then I want to nod my head vehemently that, yes, I am in support of this.
Okay, so I think you've gotten some feeling or vibes from the council right now, Mr. Stevenson, and it'll be on the agenda at the next meeting. Mr. Nerney, you have any questions, sir?
John Nerney, 200 Inverness Avenue. No questions. I'd just like to say thank you for what you just said. I appreciate the idea of sharpening the axe a little bit before I don't want to reference cutting down any trees, because that's not a good topic tonight. But I want to thank the mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, the council, the city manager, everybody involved, the Strategic Advisory Committee for vision, leadership, and partnering in this effort. I'll tell you, we have $275,000 of soft commitments, contingent commitments from the members, with many more waiting to see more nodding heads. So we'll get to our numbers. We do agree with the numbers Mr. Schusser presented. It is a result of negotiations, give and take on both sides. So we appreciate that. And then thank you to Jim Music for making this happen.
You do agree with the timeline? That's-
Yes, if you're coming back, is it October 29th, I assume?
No, November.
Oh, you're skipping that?
No,
Early November, yes. I'll confirm with Mr. Music, and if I have to shoot up a flare, we will. But I think since the last meeting, we've talked to Toro, we've continued to massage the timeline, so.
Okay, that helps.
That won't be the thing that keeps us from
Okay,
happening.
okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nerney. Okay, is there any other council business? See none? New business and/or board reports? Mr. Ross?
A couple of quick things. Under new business, the first is, most of you know, I've been on or associated with the code board now for, this is 10 years. And I haven't attended all of the meetings over 10 years, but I've attended, I can probably count on 2 hands the ones that I've missed. So I've seen these lien reductions go through the recession with the foreclosures and the result of that. I've seen the abandoned vacant properties that we had in the city. I've seen that phase. And now we're in a different phase where the economy is reasonably good, the real estate market is good, things are moving, people are buying these foreclosures up, and as a result, we're having a ton of lien reductions come before the code board, which is really a good thing. However, in several discussions with Mr. Barone, the chairman of the code board, individual members of the code board, and with our city attorney, we've noticed a pattern. And the pattern we saw the case before us tonight, where the banks or a new owner comes before us, and they're not a cut and dry lien reduction petition where somebody ran afoul of the code, they accrued a lien, and then they come before us in the future and want to talk about a lien reduction. Those we should leave alone. Those are the system we have is working just fine for those. But the ones that have legal entanglements where the banks have attorneys, I've noticed that when they come before the code board, things more resemble an arbitration or a trial than they do a code board. And quite frankly, it winds up in a very legally confusing discussion between the board's attorney, the city attorney, and often the petitioner's attorney, and the code board members are often confused and we're getting into matters of law now that they're not equipped to handle. So I say all that to say this: I would like to make a motion that we schedule, and it doesn't have to be right away because I know we've got some pressing stuff. This might even be after the first of the year. But I'd like us to schedule a joint workshop one evening between the city council and the code board members and the city attorney, obviously, and perhaps the code board attorney as well, to discuss some options. There are some things that I think we could do that would not take the code board out of the picture. It would not take us out of the picture, but it would empower our attorney to have some discussions with these attorneys and reach some settlement agreements that would then maybe go before the code board or before us, or how that would work, I don't know. That's what I want to have the discussion about. So I would move that we do that. I know we're heading into the holiday season. I don't think it's so pressing that we have, I mean, if it's, like I said, if it's after the first of the year, that would probably be okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Ms. Ross has a motion, seconded by Mrs. Donahue. Any discussion? See none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
One more quick thing. This is water under the bridge, so to speak, but the art proposal for the murals on the intersections, they're beautiful. I mean, I'm not an art guy, but I do understand that that's a thing that cities are doing now to enhance their value. I'm the guy who paints his house white, I don't, but my point is, I don't know if I missed a meeting or what, but I would have liked the council to have heard of this and kind of been involved in the decision-making before this. Because, and maybe if I missed, somebody correct me so I don't stick my whole leg in my mouth, but I don't remember knowing about this until the ship has sailed. I mean, they've got the funding, they've got the design picked, and it's going up. And I don't imagine that there's going to be any people that are really opposed to this, but, we're accountable to our constituents. And if people call and say, oh my gosh, what are you doing with this? Or what are you, you're painting my street in front of my house, or you're painting it. I mean, I'd like to be able to say, well, yeah, and we waited out. But now all I can say is I didn't know about it. And that doesn't make us look very good. So if there's a way in the future that when we're going to do something like this, and I'm not talking about if we're going to paint a fire hydrant, you go ahead and paint it. But if we're going to paint something in the middle of our city, I'd like to have some input, at least give us some awareness of it so we can respond to our constituents. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ross. Is there any other new business? I see none. City Manager's report, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Mr. Ross, they got those 2 grants within about 10 days of applying. It happened very quickly.
Good.
So we'll try to be cognizant of letting council know in advance.
Paint some coyote camouflage there to confuse the coyotes.
Really mean cats.
I won't comment on the coyotes. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, really, just real quick. All of you have gotten back with me on the couple workshops that we had talked about last meeting. November 5th at 5 o'clock, we will have a workshop on the short-term rental ordinance that we're proposing. And on November 19th at 5 o'clock, we'll have a workshop on the surtax project list that all of you have been given a copy of, and certainly ask you guys to weigh in on any additions or comments that you've got on what's on that list. We do have the ability to, again, modify that list as we see the need to. There's another IOC meeting coming up in a couple Mondays, and if there is something else that needs to be added, we can certainly present it to them as we need to. The new playbook is out. I don't know if everybody got a new playbook. It is fantastic looking. The staff is doing a great job of putting that together on a biannual basis. So, National Night Out we had after our last meeting, it was probably the best ever, and certainly thanks to Mission Hill and Mr. Patrick with the police department did a fantastic job of putting that together, and kudos to him for doing that. If you would share that with Patrick, Chief. Fire Department open house last weekend in Temple Terrace Reeds was again, another bang-up job by one of our departments that really reaches out to this community. And Chief, they did a great job at that. And thanks to Mr. Haywood, your division chief, for the work that he did. We know those are a lot of work to put those together, and we certainly appreciate it. Workshops, I would, we've got Fall Festival coming up October 28th. 20 what? 26th, I'm sorry. You told me 28 this morning, I wrote over 26. Got it. 26, 6:30 to 9 at the Family Rec Center. We do have Mr. Langfeld has been working with Fox 13 News to do a special on Focus Academy Cafe that's at the Rec Center, and kind of highlight the efforts of those kids over there. They're doing just a great bang-up job over there. And for those of you that hadn't gone over there and buying a cup of coffee or a drink, shame on you. Go over there and buy something from Focus Academy. There's a couple things I'm going to ask Mr. Pauly to come up and kind of give you a brief update on redevelopment efforts. And while he's doing that, I'm going to bring to your attention, we closed on the Richmond property. Just to let everyone know, we received $2.9 million that again was applied to that note that we've got with Republic Bank. To date, we have paid off $6.8 million of that $10 million note. The balance of 2.2. We met with Jay Glover, the gentleman that refinanced these loans for us last year. Interest rates have come down. I intend to bring to council a refinance on possibly rolling the $2.3 million note with Republic into the $14 million that we've got with Center State at a lower interest rate. And over the course of 20 years on a yearly basis, the calculations that he has given me, you're looking at the first year saving $71,853, and from then on approximately $82,000 a year for the next 20 years. Interest rates have come down. I think we ought to take advantage of that. He is putting together a memo that I can share with you before our next meeting, but obviously I'd like to move in that direction. I think that that's where we need to go to in order to, again, continue working on our debt. We have certainly been committed on reducing that debt that's been tagging this city for years. So with that, as I get that information, we'll start sharing that with you. We're on a short leash to get this done, but I'd like to get it done in November. So as we get that, I think we're supposed to have something this week from Mr. Glover. We'll share that with you, and certainly put the paperwork together to bring it back to council for what you guys would like me to do with it. So with that, Mr. Pauly, give you just a brief update on the projects that we've got in the redevelopment, and that is all I've got.
Mr. Stevens, if I can ask you, how much did our payment drop since you paid off that $2.9 million? Would that reduce our payment?
Our payment would go down to $15,800.
Great.
Thereabouts.
Good.
From
Thank you.
32 something.
That's a big difference. Absolutely. Thank you.
So,
good job. Sure.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Mr. Stevenson, thank you. I'll keep it very brief. I'll speak first on the Paragon project. Just recently, staff completed the third review of the plan submission. That's their third submittal. Community development staff is working on the report and will be working with the developer in the very near future to finalize that. They're getting extremely close to being able to move past the site plan. The next project is the Richmond project. As you know, that's the one we closed on recently. Richmond is moving forward with, I engaged the project manager this week, last week, with regards to site preparation and staging some materials and equipment on site. So they are already moving forward and making plans to get their project up and running. I don't have a groundbreak yet for them, but every time I talk to them, I remind them we need a groundbreaking date. We really want to celebrate this. So they are aware of our intent to celebrate their groundbreaking. I don't have a date locked in from them yet. The Enigma North project, demolition, as you know, has been going on for a little over a month down there for the interior to be totally demoed out and redone. The site has been cleaned up, or a good portion of the site has been cleaned up, and is going through preparations to start their remodel project. The Enigma South project, city staff, myself, city manager, city attorney have been very active with negotiations going on with the developer to finalize a contract for the south parcel. And you may recall that there was a couple of other items listed under general updates. The one of which is the triplex development addition at 9237 Overlook Drive. The planning for that project is continuing, and it seems to be on track and moving forward. And the most exciting thing I have to share with you this evening is last week, myself, along with the Community Development Department, met with a new owner representative from 5400 East Bush Boulevard. You all know that is the old Kmart building. The property has a new owner. The owner has retained BDG Architects of Tampa to start putting together a complete redevelopment rehab of that structure. The details for the way they're going with it and the tenants are still not for public release. There's still some contracts yet to be inked, and we don't want to muddy up anything that they're working on, but I can share with you that they're going to completely redevelop that structure, and we're going to have some beautiful retail shopping opportunities moving into that old building. And with that completes my report. Thank you.
Mr. Ross?
I have a question.
So what's the nature of the delays with Paragon? I mean, Richmond's talking about establishing a laydown area, and Paragon's still jerking around with their site plan. I mean, what is it? Are they putting the sidewalks in the wrong spot? Are they moving buildings? What is so difficult about getting a site plan for 2 acres of land?
I don't want to speak for community development, but I can just speak very briefly on what I do know of that project. That project has gone through, I'll usually use the phrase redesigns. As he brings on new tenants, every tenant requires a certain building type. Every tenant wants to see a certain facade or et cetera, whatever best suits their business. So he himself has struggled with that. He does not, to my knowledge, he does not have all of his buildings fully occupied, so he is yet dependent on somewhat of an unknown there. Most recently, he did not satisfy some sidewalk installation requirements, and that did have to go back, and since then, they were redesigned. The widths were improved to the minimum standards where applicable. There are some areas where there just physically isn't enough real estate to put a wide sidewalk in place.
So once we get the, not to interrupt you, but once we get the site plan, it's got to come to us for approval. then what? He's still got to then get permits and all. I mean, what, is he ever going to reach the point of building something on this thing or what?
I certainly hope so. That is the direction he's moving.
I'm about to move that we buy it back from him and sell it to somebody who's going to build something. I don't know what I mean, how long has it been since we closed on this?
It's
What,
been a
2
bit.
years?
Yeah.
I mean,
Been over a year. The first site plan that we got from him was totally different than what you guys approved under that presentation that he gave us. And we sent him back to the drawing board, and I know that he's been negotiating with tenants and so on and so forth. And, I don't think buying it back from him is something that we need to do, because I think he is moving forward quicker now than he ever has.
Good.
So, I know everybody's impatient, nobody's more wanting to see something built down there than me, believe me, okay? But we've been messing with this for 15, 20 years, and we're on the cusp of getting stuff done. So,
And Mr. Ross, I think if it sheds any light, two things are working in our favor is that, number one, he owns it. So every month, I mean, that's money coming out of his pocket. And two, the apartment deal closing is a huge selling factor for him now to go to these prospective buyers. Because more than likely what's happening is, as he's taking his time, like the previous guy, they're trying to secure people to occupy it. They don't want to build an empty building.
Right.
Most people don't.
Right.
So I think the apartment deal closing is huge, and you'll start seeing, I think, more momentum with that, because he owns it. It's not like it's tied up anymore, so the burden's on him. If anybody wants to break ground and make something happen, it's him now, because every month there's no return on that $3 million he's got out there. So I think it's going in the right direction, so.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know anything about this project on Overlook.
It is a triplex addition. I believe there's a triplex already on the property, and I'll try to recall, the current parcel has a structure to the north side that is more of a rectangular shape that runs east and west, and the proposal that they wish to build is more towards the east side of the boundary that would run north to south.
This is,
It's a residential development that requires somewhat of a site plan, so on and so forth, that is really
And it-
not that big of a project, but it's within the CRA.
It is within the
We've added it to
CRA.
the list of things we track.
okay, so because it's in the CRA.
Yes, ma'am.
That's falling under that, okay.
Yeah.
Because we just had a project come before us, on 53rd, 54th, whatever, and we said no. So this one is kind of a surprise, and especially not having any idea of what it looks like, and I need to drive by there so I can figure it out myself, so.
Sure, yeah, and again, it's not something that I would normally report on, because I am reporting on all of the CRA. For example, the O'Reilly's project. You've seen the O'Reilly's mentioned in my reports as well. That's going in right there on Bush Boulevard. It's not a city-owned parcel, but it is a CRA project.
Right, okay.
We're just trying to be.
No, thank
pay
you.
as much as we can.
Thank you, still.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
not-
update.
Yeah.
Anything else? Mr. Stevens?
Uh,
I think
Mr.
your
Vice
15
Mayor.
minutes is up, but keep going.
I'm sorry?
I think your 15 minutes is up, but go ahead.
I would like to schedule to take some vacation time from the 23rd to the 30th.
Your time's up.
I'm sorry?
Your time's up. We can't discuss this.
I'll have to assign a couple individuals to kind of take my place for a week, and I'll let you know what that is towards the end of this week.
Okay,
And I'm done.
all right,
My 15
fantastic.
minutes are
And
done.
if you're done, meeting adjourned. Thank you.